Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Okay, so today we're kind of skipping the usual history lesson. Our mission isn't really to look back at chart performance from decades ago. We're diving into something else, more like the physics of cultural longevity, how a legacy doesn't just last, but actually grows its global relevance decades later. And we're focusing on Queen and Freddie Mercury. I mean, they're one of music's most enduring and, frankly, explosive cultural entities, aren't they? The sources we gathered for you today really crystallize their modern status. It boils down to this single powerful observation about their current cultural potency.
That's exactly right. When you strip away all the sort of trivia and the dates, our source material really zeroes in on this one core truth. The legend of Queen and Freddie Mercury continues to move people around the world, and that's a statement about right now, their current impact. It's operating in the present tense. So our deep dive today is purely analytical, you see. We need to dissect that sentence. What does the source actually mean by calling it a legend? And what's the mechanism driving this emphasis on the fact that it continues to resonate? Like how? And how exactly does their work manage this profound reach, around the world?
Yeah, that's a perfect entry point for our conversation. We're not really questioning if this statement is true. I mean, the global evidence kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? We're examining the components of that endurance, trying to understand the architecture, if you will, of truly sustained cultural power. So let's unpack this. Maybe start with the identity itself, because the source doesn't just say Queen, and it doesn't just say Freddie Mercury. It specifically names the combined entity, the legend of both Queen and Freddie Mercury. And that feels critical. It suggests the enduring power isn't just from the band, or just from the front man, but from this explosive synergy created when those two forces met.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating there is the implicit recognition that the musical foundation, Brian May's incredible compositions, those layered vocals, the sheer complexity of albums like A Night at the Opera, that's all inextricably linked to the visual. The theatricality, the charismatic spectacle of Freddie Mercury. And the word legend, I think, captures that synergy perfectly. It implies a scope, a narrative that goes beyond just history or popularity. A band can have a history, sure, but a band that sort of transcends its era and starts defining universal archetypes, that has a legend. This is an entity where the genius of the stage performance is completely inseparable from the genius of the composition. You really can't talk about Bohemian Rhapsody without discussing the four operatic parts, just like you can't discuss the band without picturing Mercury absolutely owning Wembley Stadium.
Right. If they were just a great band, they'd be history. Maybe important history, but history. And if Freddie were just a great frontman without that band, maybe a footnote. But together, they became this archetype. They're almost the definition of the epic rock and roll dream, but filtered through this spectacular, almost operatic lens. And that fusion, I think, is precisely why the concept of legend feels so timeless. It's a story that endures because its parts are just so dramatically compelling.
And that leads us right into the action part of the statement. Continues to move people.
Yeah.
This is where the legacy stops being just a historical artifact, something dusty on a shelf, and becomes a dynamic cultural engine. The source emphasizes continuation. It's signaling that the impact isn't something preserved in amber. It's actively regenerating itself right now, in the present.
Okay, let's try and unpack that mechanism of continuation, because this really addresses the challenge of longevity, doesn't it? Most bands, they fade. Their power relies on the moment they created the work, maybe the context of that time. But Queen's music, it often relies on active participation. Think about those songs built specifically for stadium crowds.
Precisely. They almost engineered cultural immortality by creating music that requires an audience to complete it. We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions are the absolute clearest examples. They are inherently participatory experiences. You don't just sit and listen passively. You have to clap, you stomp, you sing along. This mechanism ensures that every new generation discovering them basically reenacts the original communal experience. It turns historical listening into a physical, present-day event.
And here's where it gets really interesting, especially for you, the listener, trying to understand long-term cultural impact. Modern media actually feeds this continuation. Think about the resurgence driven by films like Bohemian Rhapsody. That showed the spectacle, the music. It was instantly accessible and emotionally potent to a huge, maybe previously untouched audience. And streaming culture, digital culture, it rewards music that's instantly recognizable and emotionally powerful. Queen is perfect for that.
Exactly. And the ability of the music to move people, it isn't just about nostalgia or selling records. It's about providing this catharsis, defiance, joy, things that translate into shared experiences globally. The source is basically confirming that this emotional core remains accessible and potent across generations, and that's what fuels the engine of continuation. The legacy is dynamic. It's constantly finding new platforms, new audiences to share that participatory moment.
Now, let's maybe address a potential challenge here. We've established they move people, but what separates Queen's continuation from, say, a classical composer like Beethoven? His music still moves people, right? But I think the key is that active physical participation in their songs. That lends itself far better to modern global mass culture, to film synchronization. It just feels current, not purely historical.
That's a crucial distinction. Beethoven's work often requires, or at least invites, reverence, maybe stillness. Queen's work often demands noise and movement. The source is observing that their work provides an immediate, visceral, emotional release. And this brings us neatly to the final necessary component of this definition of a legend from the source, the universal scale, around the world.
Right. This elevates the phenomenon from just being popular in, say, the Anglosphere to something truly universal, which is, let's be honest, a rare and difficult achievement for any band, especially a rock band. So how do we justify that claim, that borderless appeal?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the global nature confirms the legend transcends specific cultural boundaries, linguistic barriers, national borders. This is where the theatricality and the music's actual structure really kick in. Think about the language of the music itself. While many rock bands are very linguistically focused, Queen communicated so much through aesthetics, through visual spectacle, and pure emotion. You see, for a musical phenomenon to genuinely move people around the world, it needs to possess inherently relatable themes, yes, but perhaps more importantly, a powerful, universal, non-verbal resonance. Queen really mastered that universal emotional language, triumph, defiance, theatrical identity. You don't need to understand English perfectly to feel the soaring climax of Don't Stop Me Now, or to get the sheer defiance inherent in Mercury's stage presence.
I wonder if we should also look at the actual construction of some of the songs, like We Will Rock You. The simplicity of that rhythm, stomp, stomp, clap. It's intentionally primitive, isn't it? It's pure rhythm, it requires zero cultural translation, and that becomes a foundational building block that can immediately connect billions of people globally, regardless of their native language or musical background.
That simplicity, balanced with complexity elsewhere, is crucial to their global acceptance. Yes, they incorporated operatic complexity in songs like Bohemian Rhapsody, but even those compositions are universally powerful because they use musical motifs that are widely recognizable. They tap into the dramatic language of, say, classical European music, but they turbocharge it with rock energy. It's like high art structure delivered with low art accessibility. This unique blend makes them palatable and incredibly potent everywhere, from stadiums in London to clubs in Tokyo. So if we synthesize all these findings, what the source is identifying is this unique cultural entity, the combined Queen Mercury legend. And it's defined by its ability to create music that almost demands physical participation, which ensures its continuous regeneration, all while using a non-linguistic, powerful emotional vocabulary that guarantees its global reach.
So we've basically uncovered the operating manual for cultural immortality, at least according to this analysis. The legend's current power is defined by its continuation, driven by active engagement, its emotional depth that sort of bypasses cultural friction, and its undeniable global scale. They don't just stay in the history books, they actively hit you in the gut today, globally.
It really forces us to redefine what success means for an artist after their active career might have ended. It's not just about maintaining status, it's about regenerating relevance. The Queen legend serves as, well, a perfect case study for a legacy that successfully turned its body of work into these participatory cultural tools. And this raises an important, maybe provocative question for you to consider, building on this idea of enduring global impact. If Queen and Freddie Mercury's power is so rooted in the perfection of the performance of their existing material, and that performance style relies so heavily on the iconic visual and vocal identity of Mercury himself, then how does the global audience process new, non-Mercury-led versions of the band without potentially undermining the very foundational legend that the sources confirm is so powerful today? Does the legend eventually become immutable, defined only by that original era? Something to think about.